Welcome back. So, first of all, I wanted to go through some Devin Grayson tweets. As I suspected after I recorded, she responded. She is a lovely person. Just the fact that she answers my questions, I think, is really great and is really thorough in her answers. So, first of all, I'll say what my tweets were and my specific question, and then I will read her response. So I said, "Good morning. I've just read Nightwing 78 to 79 in prep for my next episode, and I had a question about the current state of Dick and Bab's relationship. Is this strain slash awkwardness between them on account of Dick's focus being elsewhere, Nightwing and the BPD, and Bab's concern that he's taking on too much? Or is there something deeper going on? In these issues, it seems like he's avoiding any serious conversations with her, but then again, maybe he's just a guy and honestly doesn't see what he's doing or doesn't get Babs's feelings. I appreciate your time and look forward to hearing your insider knowledge." And she responds, let me find this here. It's a nice little thread. "I wrote the issues you mentioned over 25 years ago, so they're much fresher in your mind than mine, but here's my attempt to answer your questions about Babs and Dick. For me, the central hurdle in Dick and Babs's relationship was always how much history they have together, particularly as it relates to how well she knows him. She loves him deeply, they have fantastic chemistry, and she knows how he's honorable and trustworthy and capable of true intimacy. But she also knows all of his hangups and flaws, and perhaps most saliently here, knows that she knows him somewhat better than he knows himself. So yes, she's worried. She knows how he operates. She knows he's working too hard and won't stop until he crashes. She knows that he already considers himself responsible for saving Tarantula, whatever that will end up meaning. And she knows that given his history, the chance that that venture will end up including some kind of emotional and or physical entanglement is high. She knows that whatever he's doing, his focus is on that thing 100%, which sometimes includes being with her and then sometimes doesn't. And she knows that she's become literally the voice in his head. There aren't many models for that kind of a relationship, so she's not yet 100% sure that that role, so critical to his work, will prove compatible with being his SO. Babs is so smart, even when her heart's involved. There's no way she isn't thinking about the relationship analytically as well as emotionally. Emotionally, in the period you're citing, she feels very close to him. But analytically, she's worried about giving her whole heart over to someone who has already literally pledged his life to, well, that man, Batman and his eternal fight for justice. Essentially, they're both soldiers. The thing she most admires about him, his commitment and discipline and dedication to the cause, are the same things that will make it hard for her to ever be his number one priority. And sometimes she feels like, since she's also a soldier in that same army, it should be totally possible to share a life with him. But other times she feels like she can see all the ways in which he's obviously not ready to settle down and be a life partner to someone. So she doesn't want to fall any more deeply for him than she already has. From Dick's point of view, the fact that he loves her and she loves him should be enough. They can figure everything else out on the go, and he is always on the go. He knows he'll do anything for her and assumes she'll always tell him exactly what she needs, but he's unaware at this point in his life of how well he compartmentalizes, something that will soon be illustrated in his relationship with Catalina. He was taught to focus with laser-like intensity on whatever it is he's doing in any given moment and doesn't yet understand what it feels like to be the person that passion has been focused on and then have it predictably disappear for unpredictable lengths of time. Babs, on the other hand, is entirely aware of that dynamic. As I recall, she gets the chance to explain more of her thoughts a little further into the story, but I hope this helps in the meantime, which it certainly does. So thank you, Devin Grayson, for all of that insight. And it's interesting how well I think what you said and explained right there really captures what's going on in the current Nightwing, just with a couple panels of Wally and Dick talking about that relationship between Dick and Babs. So it's ever relevant, I suppose. But yeah, really interesting. And I'll look forward to seeing all that go. And I think that just explains some of the art and the facial representations that you see with Babs, and then just that frustration and these two kind of passing ships in the night as they're working and trying to have conversations. So there you go. So thank you. And I'm sure I'll continue to tweet out to her as I have questions. And as we get looming, as we loom ever closer to that one particular situation, though I don't know, because if you recall, when I tweeted her last time, it was clear how regretful she is of that. So I don't know if I necessarily want to bring that up again, but we shall see. The other thing I wanted to say just before I start in on the modern stuff is I woke myself up in a panic from a nap I was taking over the weekend after I had recorded part one about Twag. And I was very fearful that I had been saying these comments about his dress. And I wondered, oh my gosh, what if they were trying to present Twag as a queer man and I have made fun of what or really was critical on what he was wearing. So if that is the case in the context, then I take it back. We do not have the same fashion senses, but Twag can wear whatever he wants to wear. If the context is that he is in fact a villainous person and that is what he chose to wear, that is certainly his choice still. I disagree with it. And I think that he should have been covered in head to toe in black rather than those gloves that go nearly all the way to the top of his arms and don't. So I apologize if I said anything offensive, which I may have. I just had this thought. I feel like there's a character I remember that kind of came to me that wore those long gloves, was definitely a man. I feel like he had maybe silverish hair, silver gray hair, and then wore like these really interesting kind of 60s style big glasses. Or I'm thinking of something else, but I just thought, oh no, what if I've real messed up? So I shall be more cautious in the future when talking about menswear for sure, but it's also 2003, so I feel like maybe the chances are they most likely were not making Twag a queer gentleman. But and then randomly, because I was looking up Twag just to see if there was any insight, and on the DC Wikia, they actually have his real name, and I thought when was that revealed? But it also said there were 3 appearances of him, and 2 of them, which is false because of what I've already seen him thrice, but the other 2 appearances that they show him, I haven't gotten to yet, so maybe we'll see him again. But randomly, there was a thing that said, what's the definition of Twag? But Twag is spelled capital T, capital W, A, G. And apparently it's a semi-mythical female with loose morals who has sexual relations with men while disregarding any emotional or practical consequences on both sides, often in the pursuit of direct or indirect monetary benefit. Semi-mythical. I mean, I feel like those people actually exist. Loose morals. I don't know. I could almost say like Rebecca De Winter from Rebecca could kind of be a Twag. I don't know. It was just a very bizarre, and it's Twag. Anyways, okay, we'll move on. So I do have a couple comics that I'm going to go through. One quickie, Batman Urban Legends number 14. And the reason why I'm doing Batman Urban Legends number 14, get to my share screen here, and let's do this. Okay, hold on a sec. Here's hoping. So the reason why I'm doing this, which first of all, I was looking at this and I thought, gee whiz, Batman just destroyed that man's face. But the reason why I'm looking at Urban Legends 14 is because Birds of Prey, Memory Lane Part 1 of 3, Che Grayson, which sounds like an amazing name and an amazing person. And I forgot before this show to see what the gender is of that person, but I shall do it next time. Shay Grayson, related to Dick Grayson, maybe. Writer Serge Acuna, isn't it? Maybe not. There's no little yeah. Acuna, artist Ivan Placencia, colors, and Josh Reed letters. And so as I flip here, I will say that the publisher synopsis just says a new Birds of Prey led by Lady Shiva and Katana. Is this it? Yes, it is. So I don't want to get too much into this, but the point that I wanted to bring up, actually, a couple points. Number one, urban legends, in a way, seems like a good way to trial a pilot. They have multiple stories, so very much harkens back to Detective Comics of old, where there were different stories, but various stories. They're shorter, 10 or 12 pages, multiple parts. And then, oh, as if it's popular, if the story works well, bring it out and have its own book. The fact that there are people named Roe is really interesting, just because we have somebody else, Harper, of course. But I couldn't remember then if Harper Row was actually ROW. It's been a while since I've seen her name in print, and you know how you kind of forget what that is like, or how a word is spelled when you're seeing other words. So it's not the best story. I think what intrigued me was more the character lineup than the story itself, because more tech stuff, which we've got Seer going on, so it just seems like an overload of tech thievery, tech villainy, that kind of stuff. But it's more about the lineup of this Birds of Prey, the fact that we have these two women, I guess, co-leading Shiva and Katana. Clearly, it's not the best. I mean, they're already fighting. And then this other girl, I think her name is Ghost, pops up, which someone from the audience, you guys will have to tell me who this ghost person is and where she has popped up prior, because it seems like people know of her and I should as well, but I don't. And then I do know the other girl, but I can't remember. Is her name Molly? I know it's from the Batman storyline. Yeah. Whew. Miracle Molly is her full name. So really interesting. And I'm seeing everyone has their own motivation for being a part of this group. And as Ghost says, you've got a tech villain, a stoic outsider with a magic sword, and me. I'm trying to think if there is anything else, but they each come through, and there is something I wanted to bring up. That there we go. Shiva says we don't have to agree with each other okay. We don't have to agree with each other ideologically to get the job done. And so clearly everyone's coming to the table for different reasons. Everyone has their own abilities. So that feels very Birds of Prey-ish. What doesn't feel Birds of Prey-ish, classic Birds of Prey, I should say, is the fact that they are not necessarily friendly with each other. I think Miracle Molly might be able to be friendly with anyone, it seems like, and she might like the conflict. Shiva and Katana are never going to get along. And then Ghost, I think, is just not necessarily going to trust everyone, but is probably someone that might warm up as the team goes along. So what this Birds of Prey feels like is the Birds of Prey that started in the New 52, which I know not many people liked. I actually grew really to like it more so in the first arc, and Katana's was a part of that original team, I believe, if I'm remembering. Katana and Batgirl and Poison Ivy and Thorn. That was not her name. I can't remember what her name is, but which I still remember there are some storylines that were not picked up and finished from the first run by Dwayne Straczynski. So Katana, this is old hat for her to be in I don't know if they're anti-heroic team necessarily, or a group of these really interesting on the line of good and bad, or maybe nondescript and working for the good of Gotham, maybe. So that makes sense. And then there's this other situation that they bring up, reminiscing. I just went to the end, so now I'm not going to know, of stealing memories, like people. So the whole tech thing, I'll just stop sharing right now. The whole tech thing is that there's a program that sorts through your memories and you can relive them in real life, which sounds very Black Mirror-esque. And I guess they're stealing memories and things like that. And it just sound even someone said the word reminiscing. And I thought, okay, we just had a film starring Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson on, I feel like it was called Reminisce or Reminiscing or something like that. So it's just, I'm more interested in the team to see how that forms rather than the story, which just seems like a bunch of borrowed parts from other things that we've seen, as well as just more technology, which I guess that's just the price you pay living in our current world and current society, so reliant on technology. But we've got Seer going on. So can we resolve that before we get back to it? But let's move on. Let us move on to Nightwing 91, which I literally read 20 minutes ago. It's very early in the morning. So I'll go through this and then well, I forgot to do the credits. So I was trying to find those, but it's definitely Nightwing 91. And well, I'll find the subtitle at some point. Writer Tom Taylor, artist Geraldo. No, let's see here. I literally can't find the credit page, so just believe me. This is Nightwing 91, writer Tom Taylor, artist Geraldo Borges, and colorist Adriano Lucas. And the publisher synopsis says, trying to save a city that's even more beyond saving than Gotham is no small task, and even someone like Nightwing needs a day off to relax with his best friend and to recharge. But when your best friend is Wally West, aka the Flash, a recharge might not end up being so relaxing. So just quickly, it really is. BFFs, some shipping. Donovan, I was talking with him on the phone yesterday and he said, is it me or is Tom Taylor shipping them? And he was giving me some extreme examples. And I thought, well, that does sound like shipping, but I don't necessarily see that here. But with Wally beating up on KG Beast and saying like, I don't hold a grudge, but this time I will. You tried to murder my friend. And that you almost took away one of the greatest heroes and one of the best people I know. So every time you step out of line from now on, I will be there to stop you and I've got the time. So I guess I could see some of that, but I think, they're just BFFs, but we could ship them together. I don't slash fic ship them together. I don't think that there's any romance there, but I think Tom Taylor is just a fanboy. I think, and I think that is lovely. It's interesting how KG Beast is made out to be a bit like an imbecile, or also I think Tom Taylor does a really fun job of looking at what comic critiques there might be from fans, like why wouldn't you do this, and then spins that and has a fun time with it, like in the previous issue with women in refrigerators. But the fact that there's a bomb that's about to go off, Dick easily finds it because there's GPS. He removes the mask of KG Beast to unlock the phone, that kind of stuff, which is pretty funny. Babs is now at the home of Wally West and Linda Park, so a bit like a double date, but not necessarily. And she checks in on him, which I thought was great because, of course, KG Beast and having that Rick Grayson, which we don't like to think about, do we? And just playing Oracle, but it's fun to have her in this setting with Wally also there. And again, we've seen it in the past where she uses Wally as a go-between sometimes. So to bring that current times modern comics is a lot of fun. So they're going to Costa Rica, and then the kids, since Haley is there, the kids want a dog, and Wally knows that he's probably going to be convinced or manipulated into getting something. And he says, I want you to know that if they talk me into so much as a goldfish, it's on you. And then a funny scene here while I ask him, piggyback or cradle? And Dick says, you've traveled into the future. You've met hundreds of flashes. Do none of your descendants ever come up with a better way to carry someone? And the answer is no, but he does choose piggyback. So at least we know what his preference is. So let's see here. They have some really interesting conversations just about heroing life and how does Wally do it, where he leaves the house with his wife and children. And he said, I check in on them all the time. And he actually checked in on Dick every hour for or so for weeks since you announced what you were doing. And Dick says, that's stalkerish. Oh, definitely stalkerish, but appreciated as well. And then yeah, so they find this lady, well, this head of this huge assassin organization, and I really like her. So Wally's taken out of commission by a force field, and so now it's Dick and this woman here, and which makes sense since it's his comic. And I really like her design. I think it's a really cool villain design and a really intense fight scene. She fights dirty, but she fights well. And again, so she's got a knife that has poison. And again, one of those things like, oh my gosh, is he now going to die? But hey, it's no, Tom Taylor knows. And where is it here? Flash and Mr. Terrific built this suit to be stab proof, and he uses that for some close combat. This is a great scene where Flash is unconscious. He wakes up and he says, when I was unconscious, I think I was thinking, and it's not easy balancing it, worrying I won't come home. But this is what we do. I know you've lost people and you're worried about losing more, but you shouldn't let that stop you and Babs from being a thing. And Dick says, Babs and I, it's complicated, which I feel like isn't really in this book, but I don't know. Wally says, it isn't at all. I don't know how such great detectives can be so clueless. You already have a puppy and the same threat of death hanging over you. That's a shared life right there, which is exactly what Devin Grayson was talking about. You've both come through a lot of messy, painful stuff, and you both deserve to be happy. So I thought that was really a great conversation. And then Dick uses that network to basically destroy itself. So he sets people up all over the world and gets them out in the open. And then there are the heroes basically come. You see a montage of different heroes coming and destroying those operations. And then Shiva pops up here and says to Blue Taven as a courtesy, which is really interesting, I don't know what their relationship is like. Perhaps I've seen it, but I don't know. She says that basically that network is destroyed. No one's going to touch this job. So if you want Dick Grayson, you've got to do it yourself, which is really interesting. And there was one thing. So over 20 top assassins are in custody. One was found dead with his heart removed. And I wondered what hero would do that. So basically, Dick Grayson got somebody killed. So just think about that. Oh my goodness. Should he be fired, Donovan? He inadvertently got somebody killed. Okay. So that is Nightwing number 91. And now we are here for the main event, which is, of course, Batgirls number 5. Okay. See what's happening here. This. Okay. So maybe. I hope this. Now I'm just really paranoid. But anyway, so this is Batgirls number 5, One Way or Another, part 5. Writers Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, artist George Corona, colorist Sarah Stern. Bondo and the Batgirls are being chased through the hill by a van and the Saints. Oracle grabs their location and soon joins them as Cass does some fast and furious, tricky maneuvers and heads head on for the van. Steph leaps onto the roof of the van and immediately needs assistance. A grapple gun from Cass stops the van somehow, and Babs catches Steph mid-air. Outside of their vehicles, Batgirls the Batgirls, I guess, take down the Saints, and Babs hacks Fido. Babs tells them they have been played and gives them evidence that Simon Saint is dead, and Seer has been behind it right before telling them the police are on their way. Fido comes home with Babs, and the jig is up with Bondo, but hey, Babs already knew, and are you really that surprised? On their return, Steph receives a transmission from Tudor, who has seemingly escaped Dante and is planning something big for the city. Babs uses Fido to track the transmission down within some blocks and decrypts his biography. Tudor is Cody Klein with a K, which is a story point, who graduated from Gotham Academy, studied art at Gotham U, was busted for some minor infractions involving graffiti and trespassing, and suffered a psychotic break during one of Scarecrow's attacks, landing him in Arkham. Even with his treatments, he grew unstable. Looks like the transmission leads the Batgirls to Arkham as well. As all the inmates have been moved to the tower, according to Detective Comics 1047 with an editor's note, the girls can sneak around Arkham and look at the files without being disturbed. They find the file on Klein and discover that Dante had been involved in his treatment. At the same time as they're reading this, Oracle is going to check on Dante, even though the girls are warning her to be careful, and for good reason, as Spellbinder knocks Babs out soon after her arrival. And I mean, the door was open. You'd think you'd be suspicious. Meanwhile, at Arkham, Steph faces off against an upgraded Tudor, and Cass, after having heard a noise, goes up to the roof only to find a brainwashed Grace O'Halloran. And Cass looks down upon a mass of brainwashed citizens and readies to take them all out on her own. Next, draw me like one of your dead girls, which is really quite interesting. Okay, so looking at this cover, we have a hashtag Carol and O situation right here because Babs, a bust, I would say, because it's more than a floating head, but you do have the full-on Steph and Cass body. So technically, yes. It is interesting design, and I'm glad that Barbara is actually on the cover since that's been one of my complaints, and it looks like she's in Oracle mode because she has a headset on, and then the fact that it looks like she's in the grip of Spellbinder's hand. So interesting, but hashtag Carolyn knows. So my first comment actually goes back to Shayna's email, right, about this intrusive narrator, and it seems like we're back. I think 4 was, it was either me and whatever mind state I was in, or it just wasn't as bad, but this did seem really intrusive. And I challenge you all to read one of these issues without reading the purple narration or author commentary and tell me if you've lost something, because I really don't think that you could. The one thing it might do, which is something I have a criticism about in regards to DC Comics in general, is that it does give you a somewhat summary or catches you up from previously, because Marvel is really good about that, where the first page with the credits will actually show like who that person is, like Spider-Woman is dot, 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 previously on Spider-Woman dot, 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 dot. And DC Comics never does that, which if you're reading it pretty successively, it doesn't matter. But sometimes with some stories, especially if it takes place, it would be really good to have some of those little summary pages. So this van that is chasing the girls, we are told that it's white. But for those watching this video, I ask you if that looks like a white van. And yes, it's nighttime, but it looks kind of tan to me. And the narration box tells us that. So the author commentary was a bit off. I am surprised that a van like this can keep up with Bondo. Bondo seems pretty souped up. Maybe that's just my imagining and my extreme love for the Fast and Furious franchise, but I don't see how those two could really, or, you know, go on a race, a head-to-head race. I do, did I miss it? No, it should be down here, I think. There we go. I do love this entrance of Barbara. I think it's really cool. She's a Batgirl in this particular instance. It's on a classic bike, though that bike does suspiciously have a Hawkeye logo on it. But I also thought that the jig, oh no, is the jig up with Bondo? Is she going to be like, hey, where are those mopeds that I thought you had? But you really think Babs didn't know, which is great. That's actually a comment made by all of them at the end, if I can find it. Oh yeah, Babs says, sick ride by the way. And Seth says, about the car, we meant to tell you. And she said, well, you really think I didn't know? So very true. So within this action sequence, did I do this again? I wondered what the whole point was of Steph leaping onto the van since immediately she needed help. Somehow. So it's not like she was about to break into the van from the top or there weren't any bad guys up there. She's knocking people around. So I don't understand what the point of that was. And I suppose it makes her seem careless. So there's that again. It's interesting how much difficulty the Saints gave the Batgirls at the beginning of this whole run. And they've been ever present the past few issues, albeit they've been ever present the past few issues, albeit not interacting with them. They've been on the lookout, right? There's always been this sort of suspenseful presence of them. And now they're relegated to an in medias res opening to this issue. And I would say, for the most part, taken out rather easily. Yes, they have. I mean, the variable, of course, or the difference between is that Barbara Gordon is there. So we could talk about, well, look, there's the skill Barbara, right? She uses her tech to knock out Fido. And now we have, I guess, what, 4v3? Because I think they're originally 5. So the odds are a bit better, and she just has more skill or experience. So maybe that's the change, or it's, I don't know, we're getting used to them, but it just seems strange with how difficult it was in the beginning. And now it's like, well, it's still somewhat difficult, but we're able to take care of them and mop it up. So, I don't know. With Babs actually talking to the leader there and showing the drive, I do wonder where exactly she's putting the drive or giving that to them for the Saints to see the evidence, because they're about to be picked up by the police. And it's not like the police are going to not give them a phone call, but give them a data drive so they can look at this. So I don't know about that. It's an interesting idea, something that I thought about here, especially in this section, the fact that they have a common enemy now, right? They were manipulated by Seer. Babs and the girls have been against Seer for a while now. So could the Saints team up against Seer? And I think even our narration boxes tell us that we've not seen the last of the Saints. Yeah, so you think this is the last we've seen the Saints, think again, but more on that later. So we'll see. And again, that's also, is that a spoiler? Thank you for telling us that we're not done with them. Adopting Fido 5, and he speaks in text lingo. Let's see if we can find any of that. Yeah, ARF, and well, ARF is for capital R, F, and then you've got the, I guess, the greater than or less than sign, depending on what you're doing there, greater than 3 and exclamation point, which I thought was interesting. But adopting it, it's cute, but is this smart or unwise given Barbara's history with technology being corrupted, right? Her own spine and body against her, the evil oracle of the past. Or does that history even exist? Did I put myself through pain for nothing? Who knows? I think at the beginning, the cold opening, as I like to call it, thinking about Chuck Dixon's run, thinking about James Bond runs, things like that, or films, I almost would have liked a different villain, someone who was easily wrapped up rather than the Saints. And just have the Saints still out there and have the Batgirls interact with them in another way, and then maybe them come together with Seer rather than this. I think just kind of relegating them and making it seem easier than I think it should have been, given the threat level at the beginning of this run. So apparently, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this, but the joke is still going that Babs has a former BF, and that happens to be Dante, but that BF is still not that BF. I think it was here, wasn't it? Oh, I might be past it. He's not my boyfriend. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Oh yeah, it's Tudor. He must have escaped your old boyfriend's house. And for the record, Charles Dante and I were never official. So here's another running joke. We've got a couple running jokes. We've got that one. We've got the fact that the neighbor is a serial killer and no one's believing Steph. I guess are those the only two running jokes we have so far? Maybe. I think so. If we look down on this page, you see actually the serial killer neighbor doing something bizarre with a hand. Maybe he's a mannequin. I don't know, but he's doing something weird. And also, is that Maps Miyaguchi? Please, that would be amazing, right? We were told in that interview that we're going to see Batgirls and other types of heroes come on this team, and Maps I think should not be a Batgirl. I think she has earned that title of Robin, and that's what she wants to be, so let's not change her identity. So that would be amazing to have Maps be a part of this team. I think we need to settle this team first before we bring new people, but that would be a great mentoring relationship and have, multi generations. That's super cool. Okay. So for some reason, is it this one? Yeah, my script finally finished decrypting Tudor's background file. OMG, how did it take Babs' system that long to decrypt Tudor's background? 5 issues, countless days. Doesn't she have a Cray computer, or did she have to downgrade given the move? That just seems ridiculous that it took that long. So it has the background I told you about in the synopsis, but I think everything makes sense about, the who he is with the art and the psychotic break. All that makes sense, except for his Red Skull-like appearance. I don't know if that's just something over time that the toxin does to you, but it doesn't seem like Crane looks like that or anyone else that I've really seen. So that's the only thing I don't understand. I do wonder why the Batgirls aren't investigating immediately, in fact, how he escaped Dante's residence, right? They sort of divide and conquer, but they don't even know that they're dividing and conquering, because when they're at Arkham, all of a sudden Bab says, I'm going to check in on Dante. But I feel like after they received that information, they should have immediately gone to Dante's house and inquired and figured out how he escaped and then gone to Arkham. So that was a bit strange for me. I think it didn't really make sense. Dante worked for Arkham. I think we knew that he wasn't on the up and up, but there you go. Another reason why. And then, of course, Barbara is going to be the one to check in on him. So as Barbara goes to check in on him, I feel like she should have been, just looking at this panel, a door is opened and you're walking in. I mean, that just screams red flag for anyone, I think. She should have been on way high alert when this is happening. And I imagine her of good old Batgirl past dashing into a bush to change into Batgirl, or going somewhere off and changing into Batgirl and then addressing whatever is going, this sinister, suspicious situation with weapons on her person, but she does not. And we also don't know the state of her mobility here, because she just, I mean, it looks like a good day for her. She's walking, she was a Batgirl, but she could have been really tired out from that interaction with the Saints. And so here I would say she's pretty vulnerable. I also would say that it's a red flag to me as a reader and as a fan that teenagers are more aware that she needs to be careful and should not be at this place than Barbara Gordon herself is. So even though I talked about her experience at the first part with the fight of the Saints, and maybe that turned the tide, this would be a negative towards her experience. Like she's a noob going into the situation. So I don't know what's going on here. And here we go, which is a pretty cool image, just with Spellbinder, I guess, opening some doors right behind Barbara. But she immediately gets knocked out, which, again, why is this happening in this podcast episode where she's getting knocked out by people? Okay. So this is, of course, supposed to be a sinister scene, but I just can't help but chuckle at Grace O'Halloran brainwashed on top of a roof and practically still the same Grace O'Halloran, which is really interesting. Now I, Grace O'Halloran, risk life and limb to bring you live footage of Gotham's glorious rebirth. No one can stop our revolution. So just very interesting. Cass up on the roof saying, I can take them. Good heavens, who does Cass think she is? There are hundreds, question mark, thousands of people there, but she's thinking she's going to take them all, which is really interesting. It is a good sign that there are, now listen to the full statement here. It's a good sign that there is a mass of people outside who are brainwashed, but Steph is inside and she's still okay. And I think that whatever is going on, she would have been brainwashed as well, just given the proximity, especially with Tudor. So I think that I'm hopeful that she's kind of over that and the writers are over putting her through that and making her be the brainwashed / weak link, in quotations, one. Tudor got an upgrade, kind of looks like a Mr. Freeze upgrade to me. I guess with this mask, it's just cycling psychotic drugs through him at all times. I feel like this is really appropriate that we have Tudor versus Steph fighting it out, because he's been the one manipulating her. She's been the one fighting against him, and he's used her obviously to go against Cass. So this is like really symbolic of her fighting that brainwashing and finally taking control and owning it. So again, yeah, if Donovan is right that this is her arc, then we're kind of seeing it reach that climax where she's on her own. Cass is elsewhere doing it. She has to do this. Some more narrations. Let's see here. There was something. This might look like a scene out of a zombie movie to you, but Cass doesn't make that connection because she's never seen one before. Added to the list of things that sucked about the way she was brought up. So, is Cass missing something by not having seen a zombie film? Do you think that Cass would watch films to catch up on culture, kind of like Captain America? And I actually texted this to Donovan and said, oh, yeah, absolutely. She probably would have been, definitely Asian films, maybe martial arts films, maybe anime, that kind of stuff. So maybe zombies haven't necessarily been on her list, but is she missing anything? I mean, there are a couple zombie things. Obviously, I like Resident Evil, which is strange to say, it's to the style of 10 years ago, but it's I don't know how much culture I could necessarily get out of watching and it really depends, right? Because The Walking Dead is more about the interactions of people to people and how when culture and the world is in crisis, how do people react in this sort of thing and in apocalypses and stuff like that. But you could get that in a non-zombie situation. So I don't know. I feel like she kind of knows what humanity is like. She's seen it. She's grown up with it. So she knows the depths of depravity. So I don't know if she necessarily needs to watch it. But in exactly 3 weeks, Cass will watch, according to the purple boxes, Cass will watch Night of the Living Dead for the first time. So in fact, they're coming for you, Barbara, will pop up. And I wonder what that will be like when Cass watches it and that scene pops up. Will Barbara Gordon be there? I don't know. Let's see here. There was a Apparently she's going to love that zombie film. Babs, on the other hand, hates horror movies. You didn't think we forgot about her, did you? Which is interesting because I think in the past, and I'm trying to, I guess it was New 52, right? With Gail Simone. I think she loved horror films, loved watching this stuff with her brother. And I was like, what's happening? Why does she like it? This seems more in line, I think, with her, with what I believe Barbara Gordon would probably be like in real life, that she wouldn't like horror films. I think suspense movies or detective stuff, noir, that kind of, but horror, I don't think so. I think she just would not be down for that kind of stuff. So this makes sense. And then here we go, right? She's knocked out in a sense, but it does seem like she is in fact susceptible to spellbinder, which is what I was wondering about because of her being in proximity with Dante and some of the stuff she was doing, looking up Dante, thinking about Dante, constantly defending that she wasn't with Dante, like, oh, what's going on here? So maybe she is susceptible to spellbinder, or this is just how anyone would react. I hope there are some answers. Next issue is the last one of this particular arc. And I will say that her glasses are on her face, but when she falls, her glasses are not on her face. And if you look around on the ground, you can't see the glasses. So where are the glasses? I don't know. So stakes actually exist in this issue, and it's more serious. That was certainly something that Donovan had brought up in his previous email to me. Also, the presence of Babs in a more active capacity and not a den mother, I thought was a breath of fresh air, though now she's a victim, and I guess the girls have to come and save her, which I guess this is like a nice little hazing for them to become actual Batgirls. You saved me. I'm not the biggest fan of the cold opening, as I talked about. There are some questions I have about character actions and motivations, which, like Barbara going into this house, it's like a horror film. Why are you going in there? Don't do it. Don't do it. Plus, the narration in this issue, I felt, is particularly intrusive. And also, maybe I don't want to know that the Saints are going to pop up and be surprised when they do again. So, not as positive an experience as the previous issue, but it's not bad. I enjoyed it. So I think I'm going to give this 8 out of 10. Let me think about this. 8 out of 10. Missing glasses. Let's go with that. 8 out of 10 missing glasses. Okay. So now just got the wrap up. So we have, or I have, anime watch list. I have watched something, Thermae Romae Novae, 11 episodes on Netflix. Lucius Modestus, an ancient Roman architect, finds himself job hunting due to having trouble coming up with new ideas. As his demeanor and personality become dismal, his friends try taking him to a bathhouse for him to relax. Unable to unwind in the bustling and crowded bath, Lucius dips his head in the water. Down there, he finds a secret tunnel that transports him to a modern-day Japanese bathhouse, providing him the inspiration he needed to make a new creation. I would say that's a bit misleading because not all of the baths have these tunnels. It's just like they go deep, 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 and it's like he's just transported in time and space. Loaded with what seems to be knowledge way ahead of his time, Lucius does his best to try and recreate his findings, usually inferior in quality due to his circumstances. However, the sheer ingenuity may be just enough to gain the attention of the citizens and regain his reputation as an architect. It is all about appropriation, cultural appropriation, which is really interesting, just having that commentary. And it's even a meta commentary because Lucius himself, even when people are applauding him, he's like, oh, I've stolen these ideas from other people. What can I do? Can I even say that? So that's really interesting. There's Latin in here, which of course the title is Latin. And I will say that even though I don't see it written out, but I'm listening to it, that it's not good Latin. And I'm very concerned that they're actually using Google Translate. They do a good job of putting verbs at the end, which I appreciate. But there are moments that I'm like, oh no. There was one that they were saying something like very beautiful, and they use like maxime, which means especially, and then something else, but you could, which I guess you could do that, but just use the superlative adjective. So there are just some weird things that's going on. And even the title, I'm suspicious of. I wonder if they want to say New Roman Baths, but what I'm reading is the Baths of New Rome or New Baths of Rome, depending on, because Roman is an adjective, which would be Romanus, so it'd be Romani. Um, which actually, if it were plural, it'd have to be, well, yeah, no, we could do that. Romani, Roman, whereas Romi is a noun, unless you're trying to do a partitive genitive, which might work, but I don't know why you would do that here. So I have some criticisms, I would say, on it, but it's still fun and lots of butts. Lots of butts. I think Dick Grayson would be especially proud of all of the peaches. Okay, I am not wearing anything special, so we'll just skip that and we will finish off with my literature recommendations. As I queue it up, forgive me. There are a couple teacher stuff that I did that I don't think I will talk about. And school is wrapping up. As we speak, I have 2 weeks left, I think. Well, yeah. And one from my other class, and I'm kind of ahead in it. So I'm practically done with that other one. But yeah, I think, yeah, I have a week and then a final exam for my literacy course. So I'll be able to read a bit more. I reread A Walk in the Woods, Rediscovering America on the Appalachian Trail by Bill Bryson. And I recommend checking out required reading in May for Tom and I speaking about that. And we're actually going to do a 4 episode theme of hikes and traveling and that sort of stuff. So starting with Bill Bryson, I just announced we're going to do Wild by Cheryl Strayed, and then 2 more, and then the 70th, we haven't figured it out yet, but it'll be something about that. Broken Horses by Brandy Carlisle, which is her memoir, and I give that 5 stars. I highly recommend it. I also highly recommend, if you were to choose between book or audiobook, go with the audiobook, read by Brandy Carlisle, and then in between each chapter, she actually plays stripped down acoustic versions of the songs that she's speaking of, or songs coming off of albums that were occurring in the chapter or the time that she is speaking. And yeah, that novel spoke to me in a variety of different ways and really liked it. Out and Back, A Runner's Story of Survival and Recovery Against All Odds by Hilary Allen. And she is a sky runner, and they do these intense, like running on mountains, which also involves climbing and all of this stuff. And she literally fell off a mountain. And then it's about her recovery back to that. Strange Adventures by Tom King and Mitch Gerards, which again, 5 stars. And just with Tom King, some of these maxi series like Mr. Miracle in the Past, just psychologically deep and just intense with what's going on. Mrs. Morehard and the Boys, One Mother's Vision, the First Boys Baseball League, A Nation Inspired by Ruth Hanford Morehard. And basically it's as that title is. And it was good, but I think it made me realize that baseball is not my number one sport. So I couldn't get into it. Someone lent it to me, both that and the runner book. She knows that I'm a runner. But yeah, I mean, give me a football or soccer book any day, and I'll certainly love that. And my 2 teacher books are Assessment and Student Success in a Differentiated Classroom, and Instruction, A Model's Approach. So I can say that I read those since I was given chapters, all of those chapters as I went through my semester. So I think that's it for this episode. Remember, you can send any questions or comments to batgirltheoracle@gmail.com, like the show on Facebook, or follow it on Twitter @BatgirlTheOracle. And subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version, which often has errors, but hey, I'm human. Follow the Batman universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support TBU by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. And if I survive my time in New York City with the boys, then you will see me next time. And until then, fly on, Babs lovers.